All right, all right, all right. Well, it's episode, what, 25 or 26?
Nine.
Have we been around that long yet?
9, dude.
Been doing 9 episodes?
Yeah.
Shit.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
No, yeah, it was my birthday, man. I'm excited about it. I'm 36. I'm in the best shape of my life.
Getting
I'm
punched
feeling
in the
great.
face.
Yeah, fell down a flight of stairs this past weekend. You see the other kid. It's not important. It's neither here nor there.
Fighting kids.
Dude, who gives a shit who I'm fighting, all right? They're 18 and over. They sign waivers. We go to war, okay? That's how these things work, man.
Awesome.
All right?
Awesome.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, eye looks good.
So it's been crazy, man. How was your Christmas, New Year's? Anything good happen?
I mean,
You still have family, right?
still have family. Yeah, they're around, luckily.
That's good,
They haven't
man.
abandoned me yet, so.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was good. Just kind of
They
hung out
only
local.
knew.
Yeah.
They only knew some of the stuff we did in high school. Jesus. Well, that's good, man. Well, I know our listeners out there, we hope you guys all have a prosperous, new year and you're excited for things to come. We talk about it a lot. Interest rates are dramatically shifting. The market is dramatically shifting as well. And, things are kind of on the up and up. And I know in this episode, we wanted to speak about the escrow process kind of from start to finish, how you basically go from the inception or the idea of wanting a house all the way to the close of escrow.
Right.
So we can kind of, hit on the main topics and give you guys the ABCs of how the whole thing works.
Kind of some quick bullet points and, kind of a little walkthrough.
Yeah. So I know from a real estate standpoint, generally kind of the first question I get when I'm working with a buyer is, hey, I'm ready to buy a house. I'm like, sweet. Everyone wants to buy a house.
You first, right?
Yeah, right? That or they do some nonsense like go on Zillow and, look for properties and then they send me a spreadsheet. Hey, I want to see A, B, C, D, and F and, I want a $800,000 house on the water. And I call them back and say, it doesn't exist. Call me next spring. So we start with that kind of chaoticness. And I think it's a lot of the individual just being super excited that they're now ready to take this next step in their life.
So what should they do first?
I mean, if I were buying another house, I'd probably talk to a lender, and not just any lender, a superstar lender like yourself.
You're sweet.
So
For sure. No, I think that's starting point, you know, but nobody really thinks about it. They go on Zillow and then they contact an agent off Zillow and it's a whole mess.
Yeah. And it turns into a disaster. You know what? I forgot, not to get off topic. Look at my cup. So anyone who's listening right now, we're actually starting to brand ourselves. We're making t-shirts, hats, coffee koozies.
Yourself.
I can wrap your car with a picture of my face. I got the haircut, I got the headphones, whatever works for you. We can get it done for you. And it's all tax deductible for not only for us, but also for you. So one way to work around it. So back to topic.
If you buy a house, you get a mug.
Yeah, you get a mug and you get a hat.
Oh,
that's the best closing gift one could ever ask for. You're going to have to stare at me the rest of your existence. You'll
morning.
always remember me.
Every morning.
Every morning. Or at the gym.
And worst thing, freaking cat dies.
Yeah. And the best part of it now with these whole New Year's resolutions and people going to the gym and stuff, you're seeing all these people come in and you're like, oh, wow, it's crowded. And the next day, slowly they pick off. They die and they move away or they gain more weight or they don't want to be at the gym anymore. So now I'm going to see a lot of myself on, these cups at the gym and then kind of go from there. So,
all right.
But, that's neither here nor there.
Track
to track. Yeah.
Step 1, talk to a lender, get pre-approved. Step 2,
talk to your real estate agent.
Talk to you.
Yeah.
All right.
So that I don't have to send them backwards. So, I think learning the process and the steps is very important when it comes to buying a house because then you won't kind of step on your own feet and fumble and, fall backwards and all that jazz. And it's like, once you get pre-approved, not only are you taking the initial step like we spoke about, but now you actually physically know what you can purchase. I can't tell you how many times when I first started in real estate about 5.5, 6 years ago, where I had clients where they would want to buy a house and I would take them to see a house or whatever. And then they'd be like, oh, it's $1 million house. I love it, this, that, and the other, and I'm super comfortable with the $2,000 a month mortgage payment. And I'm like, who told you that? I'm like, well, I used Zillow's mortgage calculator and, I figured closing costs were like $500. And then I'm just like,
nailed it.
Nailed it. You get a cup, you get a cup, you get a cup, right? So it's like unbelievable. Yeah. So, and I mean, you could speak more on this. How important is it speaking with a lender and getting like a net sheet or a closing sheet of all your costs?
Huge. I mean, the biggest thing is really the pre-approval amount.
Yeah.
And then what that difference is with cash that you're bringing in, you know, to get the range of home that you're looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, closing costs are going to differ between, you know, once negotiations get going and what kind of credits you're getting, if any. So, but yeah, obviously $500 is not typically realistic. But yeah, you want to know what price range you're looking in. Are you looking at beachfront property, or are you looking at, you know, a 1-bedroom condo inland? You know, there's, you know, probably a good starting point.
Is it safe to say that closing costs for a property around 1% of the purchase price within reason?
Range 1, 2, just depends on, you know, a lot of factors, like from credits to buy downs, you know, all that kind of stuff. So,
and when it comes to the closing costs, and again, for those who aren't aware, closing costs are essentially the costs associated with closing on the home and closing the loan. So what are, in your understanding, 2 or 3 actual costs that are associated with closing costs? Like, what are they? Because I want to know.
Oh yeah.
If I'm buying my first house and I don't know anything, what am I paying for?
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. So first, you may or may not have a lender fee, right?
Okay.
You're paying for either the origination or the processing, underwriting, what have you. So typically there can be a lender fee or an underwriting fee, both. Yeah. And then if you're buying the rate down with discount points, you could be paying discount points. And depending on the program you're using, there could be other fees involved, whether it's an upfront fee or discount points for
makes sense.
But that's kind of getting in the minutia of it. And then appraisal. Yeah. Typically, you're going to have an appraisal. That's a third. The
seller
party.
Generally pays for the appraisal, or the buyer does.
Buyer will pay for the appraisal, and then you'll also have title and escrow fees, and those are really dictated by the seller because they're the ones that choose what company you're using.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So
seller services, choice of services.
Right. And then to offset that, there's always, or could be, credits, whether it's from concessions or from the lender. Yeah. So those can help offset some of those fees sometimes.
That makes sense. And I know, because a lot of clients that I have or buyers that I have, like I was mentioning earlier, I ask them to get a net sheet from their lender that literally outlines those.
Yeah.
And so, to kind of recap, it's check box, find your lender, then find your real estate agent. And then from there,
or both at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. Then have your lender give you the net sheet that basically runs through the costs. And then once you know the costs and you know you have X amount of dollars in the bank to cover those, then you can kind of structure your purchase price and be like, okay, I can afford $1 million home. I know it's going to cost me $10,000 to close. I have to put 20% down, 10% down, whatever the program is structured.
Yeah.
And then you can physically go out and start seeing the property.
Yeah. You'll have some other little fees, whether it's notary fees or
kind of sprinkled in
county fees, stuff like that, recording fees. Stuff. But those aren't the major ones. Yeah. You just got to think of every party involved, and essentially there's a fee.
Yeah.
Lender, processing.
Everyone's got to make their bread, right?
Yeah, an appraiser, totally separate. There's title and escrow. So they all are going to have their fee in one way or another.
That's typically good. So I know, once that process is situated and you have, a superstar team, if you will.
Right.
Then we start going and looking at properties. Then we start submitting offers on properties. And once we get to that stage, then whatever property we, get our offer accepted on, we essentially open escrow. And escrow is, the third party that holds money between buyer and seller. That way it doesn't get commingled. That way one party doesn't take the money and run to Mexico or whatever the hell it is.
Cue the final countdown song.
Exactly. So you've got, some sort of protection. So once you open up escrow, generally an escrow is 30 days. That's pretty much standard. However, I've done as quick as a 3-day escrow, 4-day escrow if it's all cash.
Depends on the type of transaction.
It really depends. And again,
sellers, like if they're staying longer or whatnot.
They're excited, yeah. And then again, the interesting thing is everything we're saying is negotiable. That's the best thing about real estate. Every fee, every checkbox, every freaking animal on the property, whatever the heck it is, it's all negotiable. You can have it, you can get rid of it, you can do whatever. So that's what makes this industry so interesting. So we open up escrow. We've got 30 days. Then our next step is we start to go through our contingencies, which we've spoken about.
Yeah.
So on my end, you've got your 2 contingencies. You've got actually, I have 1 contingency I deal with mostly, and that is my home inspection. You as a lender have your appraisal and your loan. So speak on that. What are those?
Right. So the appraisal contingency is, well, I guess we both deal with that because that can dictate
work together on it, Brandon.
Right.
As a superstar team.
As a superstar team. So you want the appraisal ideally to come in at your purchase price.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can have gap where you have to bring in extra funds because your lender is going to use the lesser of the purchase price or the appraised value of the home as your essentially like your loan to value So if there's, your appraised value is 5% lower, that's going to be your cap on the lending guideline side.
Makes sense.
And then, it also applies to the negotiations of, well, now do we want to move the sale price if possible?
Well, that's what I was going to say next is if the property doesn't appraise at whatever the designated value is on the purchase contract, then the seller can essentially lower the purchase price.
Right. Can. Negotiate.
Not always will, but can.
Right.
And it's always great, as a buyer when the property appraises higher than what you're in escrow for, because then essentially you got a deal.
Yeah.
Pisses the seller off.
Yeah.
But,
it means you're buying the property cheaper than what it's worth.
Shame on the guy who listed the property with that seller. He didn't freaking do it right. He didn't get the every inch that he could out of that. So
yeah. And there's always those scenarios where it's maybe the appraisal is wrong. And
you can get a secondary appraisal, or I think you can actually, I've never done this personally, but I think you can literally question or
yep, I've done it.
Yeah, exactly.
You submit essentially other properties or things that you think the appraiser should have used instead.
That's what I was looking for. My buddy's a lawyer. I was looking for that. Appeal. You can appeal the appraisal.
You can.
Baby. Say that 3 times fast.
No, not on camera.
That's what I thought. So you can appeal it. And then, as far as my stuff, when we're doing the home inspection, as we mentioned, I think in our 3rd episode, we're essentially tearing apart the property, not literally, but sometimes literally.
Yeah.
And, ensuring that every little piece of the property is in good working order for whatever my client desires.
Yeah.
Right. And let's say, for example, during that home inspection, one of the hinges on the door is not on or something. Then we have 2 options. One, we can go back to the seller and request a credit or request that they fix that prior to closing, or we can essentially cancel escrow.
Yeah,
pretty much cancel it
if you find something on there that's like a deal breaker.
Even if the freaking paint on the wall is not the right color, you can cancel escrow. Like I was told that it was blue paint and this is black. I want to cancel escrow. Has it happened to us before? Absolutely. Is it a pain in the ass? Absolutely. Is it ridiculous? Absolutely. But these things happen.
Yeah.
So once you get those negotiations done with your home inspections, then you can essentially get credits, or they can lower. I always like to get the purchase price lowered because then your taxes are lower because the actual price of the property is lower. So once all that good stuff happens, then your appraisal happens, then your loan contingency happens. So that's kind of like your last savior, right? Your last contingency. How does that work from a lender perspective?
So essentially that's you getting approved by the lender.
Yeah.
And then being able to close.
Exactly.
So the biggest thing when you're in this escrow process is don't go racking up credit card debt. Don't go buying new cars, a boat, new loans.
Helicopter.
Don't do it. Don't quit your job. Finish out escrow.
Yeah.
Because that can completely change your loan scenario, your debt to income ratios and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just do as normal during that escrow process.
Yeah. As if you weren't doing anything crazy.
Yeah. But how many times that it happens?
Why do you think someone would get into escrow in a house and then decide that they need a boat too?
Well, maybe
like a midlife crisis thing or something.
Oh, we're in escrow. I hate my job. I'm going to quit my job.
That's smart. Yeah.
Before the loan closes.
And the government will pay the mortgage.
We're already closing. It's good. It's no, the lender's going to call your employer before closing and be like, hey, does this guy still work here? Can you send me his, breakdown and just confirm all this stuff? And they're like, oh no, he quit.
Yeah. So for our more sketchy listeners out there, what is that day when they call to see if they're still employed or not? Is it day 29?
It'll be right before closing.
Okay.
Yeah. So do not quit your job until after closing.
So for all of our sketchy listeners out there, if you hate your boss, wait until you're closed escrow before you quit.
Okay if you have to switch jobs, you're already switching jobs. Obviously, you have hopefully disclosed this with your lender and gone over this so that it's qualified based on your new job. That's doable as long as certain things match up.
Okay.
But do not just quit or start a different type of employment. Don't go from W-2 to self-employed. Yeah, don't in the middle of escrow.
So a lot of people on my end, when I give them, my entry-level knowledge of what being a lender is and how mortgage rates are and debt to income and all that jazz, they always ask me about underwriting. They're like, what is underwriting? Am I in trouble? Is this going to go through? How does it work? So what is underwriting?
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
No, it's
you're going to hell. You're in trouble.
So you have, different pieces of the loan process. You have your origination, which you do with your originator.
Okay.
Myself, broker, You have your processing, which reaches out to third parties and gathers documents and makes sure there's a complete file. And then your underwriter works for the lender, essentially ensuring that whatever guidelines for the program that you're qualifying for, you qualify based on those guidelines. And if there's anything that they need to satisfy those guidelines, whether it's a document or what have you, they will reach back out to me and we'll communicate that like, hey, we need X to show this, or we need a letter of explanation. Can you explain this? Anything like that. So they're just making sure that everything matches up, essentially.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's done on every single file. It doesn't mean anything bad.
Yeah.
But they're essentially the gatekeepers of that file closing. So make them happy.
I often phrase it to my clients like underwriting is like the FBI of the loan world. Basically like break down everything and they're like, hey, this guy was late on a credit card payment back in June of 06 or whatever the hell it was. And then it's like,
give us a letter of explanation for this.
Exactly. You got to just break down. Because I know people get super.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, you missed an alimony payment or and it's like, they basically bring up these skeletons in your closet. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is a large transaction.
Huge.
So if you're going to do something sketchy, get all the skeletons out of the closet for 30 days or less, and then you can throw them all back in. Just get through the underwriting process, damn it.
Yeah, that's going on a cup too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oof.
Sure.
We should coin that. I like that. Yeah, skeletons in the closet. Okay.
Get them out and then throw them back.
Get them out, throw them back in.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, once we get through that process, then essentially from a real estate perspective, we get what's called clear to close. And then essentially that's me and you as a lender saying, hey, file's good. Loan is just about to be funded the following day. We're clear to close.
Yep.
You don't technically fund the loan until you actually close. But when you get that clear to close, then you've removed all contingencies. Everything's good to go. And one thing to mention about removing contingencies is your earnest money deposit, which is generally 1 to 3% of the purchase price, but it can be any amount. But usually I always do 1 to 3%.
Right.
Once you remove all those contingencies and you're clear to close, that deposit is no longer refundable. So if you pull out of the deal on day 29 of 30, the seller is getting that. And essentially it's a good faith thing saying, well, hey, you screwed me around for 29 days. I'm keeping this money.
Yeah. 100%.
Up until that time, however, if you have any of those 3 contingencies in play and you do decide to pull out for whatever reason, you're not going to get in trouble in the sense that you'll get your deposit back.
Right.
So that's one huge key factor in real estate that I cannot stress enough to, new buyers or new sellers or anyone who's trying to do their first transaction or even second for that matter. You need to understand those protection barriers because without them, you can shoot yourself in the foot and you can lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then you've got to get it all back to do another deal again. So you've got to be very, very cognizant of those things. So we get our clear to close. Then we actually close, and then we do what's called recording. You fund, which basically means the money goes from one party to the other.
Goes to the title.
And then you
owner.
fund.
Right.
So then the county, records it as, hey, Joe Schmo owned it. Now we transferred over to Jack Schmo or whatever, Now the new guy, Jack Schmo. That's pretty funny.
Jack Schmo to Jack Schmo.
The new guy gets it. This is his brother.
Yeah,
okay?
this is an arm's length transaction?
Transferred to his brother. Who the hell cares? Either way, he got a new house. Yeah. So now it's been transferred over. You're essentially the new owner. And then at that point, you can, as a real estate agent, you can hand the keys over. Because a lot of times what happens is we almost get to that point and I have clients who are like, hey, I want to start moving stuff in. And I'm like, well, we can't because we haven't recorded yet. And they're like, what the hell do you mean? I literally had this incident happen in real life, in real time.
in real time.
Buyer, I was representing him on the $1.8 million purchase, and buyer wanted to start moving their stuff in the house. They had the mover trucks outside. And this was on day 30, and we hadn't recorded. This was like 9 a.m. And sometimes you record anywhere between 9 and 5 p.m. the same day. Yeah. So I was like, and I told them the day before, I said, we can record anytime between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Do not show up at 9 a.m.
Wait a day.
They were there at 8:30 with the flipping moving truck trying to move shit in. And I explained to them, I go, listen, from a liability perspective, if you have a mover in that house fall off of a flipping ladder and break his ankle, the original owners, who are still technically recorded, are going to get sued or could get sued. And she was hooting and hollering and cursing and not let me in. And I'm like, it's not your house. The hell off the bridge, trespassing at that point.
You can go park your truck outside.
Exactly. Well, the huge moving truck, whatever. Nonetheless, it is very, very important to have a skilled real estate agent or someone who is savvy enough to make you understand or help you understand that you don't own shit until it's recorded. Even though the money's already been sent over, you don't own it because the county hasn't recorded it.
Wait a day.
Just wait a day. Your mover's still going to be there.
Yeah.
Jeez. So yeah, once you get to that point, everything's funded, everything's recorded, the deal is closed, all money is transferred from party to party, then essentially the process is over. The house is yours.
Beautiful.
You can sit in it, you can let it sit vacant, you can rent it out, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Not let it sit vacant if it's a primary residence.
It's true.
You
You'll
do
get in
have to
trouble.
take possession.
It just depends on who your lender is and if they're going to look the other way, Brandon.
Yeah, we're going to
Nonetheless.
come around and knock on the door. Yeah.
Does that actually happen?
Not really.
See, that's a story for another day because there's different types of loans. I have investor loans on investment properties, and there's primary resident loans. But I've always been told that no one's ever, as long as that mortgage payment is made every month from wherever it comes, from China, from overseas, from my pocket, from your pocket, no one's going to come knocking. But, and not to get too far off topic, if you do get caught in a scenario like that where you have a primary residence, or at least something that you're saying is primary, but it's really a secondary investment property, and they come knocking and no one's there, you can get called on the note. And you got to pay the whole damn loan off.
Could be some mortget fraud, but
Some kind of prison sentence.
Prison, jail, Guantanamo Bay.
Whoa. Dude. You're all heated. You're turning red. So yeah, I'd say in a nutshell, that's, the purchasing process. It's can be tedious. It can be a lot of paperwork. It generally is.
Yeah.
The less crazy things you have happen, obviously, the easier it's going to be. Just remember, it's so very important to have an agent and a lender that not only are, sharing opinions and knowledge with each other, but they're working the deal together. It's not us against each other. It's us working together.
Well, they want us.
Exactly. So we got to work together on this, right? Because we share, the deal is the deal, and we need to close it, and we have to work together to close it and ensure everything goes streamlined.
Yeah.
So I've had plenty of circumstances with other agents I've mentored or worked with where it's like they wait till day 20 to talk to the lender on the deal. And I'm like, the first thing you should do before you even submit the offer is call the lender and be like, is this guy or girl legit? Do they have any money? Am I wasting my time? Can they buy a house? Whatever. Because then it streamlines the process. And not only does it benefit both parties, but it also benefits the individual buying the house.
Yeah. Communication's key.
Yeah. If you don't
Communication's
freaking
key.
pick up the phone and call someone, what the hell are you going to do?
I don't know. I like the work through, though. It's pretty.
So that's all I got from a real estate perspective. Is there anything else I'm missing from a lender perspective?
No, man. Just don't quit your job. Don't buy anything.
You have that
huge.
happen a lot?
You would be surprised.
Not
so much quitting, but like buying a new car.
What is the psychology behind being in escrow, knowing you have a large mortgage payment because we live in California, and then pulling some,
I don't know.
left field frickin' I'm going to go move to Mexico thing?
Talks to them. It's like you're buying a huge property. If you have a, really low debt to income ratio, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I've been places where I've had colleagues literally, the guy's close on a property. He goes and buys not one, not two, 3 Range Rovers in escrow.
I want this client.
$1,000 a month each. Boom, boom, boom.
Nice.
And it's like, what are you doing?
Did he have a decent sized driveway in that house?
He had no car loans and then had 3 Range Rovers. And it was like, dude, you cannot buy this house now because your debt to income ratios don't work.
Did he get pissed? Did he have to take the Range Rovers back?
Of course he was pissed. But who are you going to be mad at?
Did he ever work with you again?
No, it wasn't me, luckily. This was a horror story from
Basically
someone
threw
else.
someone else under the bridge.
Where it's usually like they buy one car, but the 3 Range Rovers killed me. I was like, you are kidding me.
Were they different color Range Rovers or like what was?
No, I didn't get that far. We can talk about the crazy stuff that I've heard and seen.
Animal.
Yeah.
That's pretty gutsy.
Yeah. It was really ballsy.
Really.
It was like,
And the property was here in California?
yeah.
I applaud that, man.
Yeah.
We need to have him on the
He
podcast.
didn't have the property, but he had the 3 Range
Yeah,
Rovers.
let's get him on the podcast. Maybe he's a car dealer. And maybe he knows something I don't know. He just buys and resells them the next day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, boy. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again for tuning in. We hope that, again, the information we spew out helps
Yeah.
you make a decision.
Yeah, and if you're a first-time home buyer, let us know.
We are going to have a seminar about first home time buyers.
First home time buyers every time.
First time home buyers. I'm dyslexic, dude. I've been hitting the head a few times. All right, relax. We're gonna have a seminar to teach people who want to buy their first house the ins and outs of the process.
Brain power that you have to use to.
And
say.
I was like, I got it. The ins and outs of the purchasing process. What you can expect, because FHA deals in your first time home buying experience that you're getting involved in are much different than a second or a third or a conventional. It's a different process.
Yeah. The different options, what to look for,
Yeah.
all that jazz.
So I'd say we're probably 2.5 to 3 weeks out. We should have something good for you. And then next week, we're going to interview someone, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
We're not telling you guys who it is, but you're going to like him. Her, it, that person. The animal we're bringing next week.
Sounds great, man.
All right, guys. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next season.